All right, welcome back. So we're going to go over the UI design, just what our next tasks are, and then just some resources that'll help you in designing your user interface. So you've gone through your prototype phase, right, or your first wireframe prototype. You can click through. We've tested it, gotten some feedback. Now it's time. We're going to start to revise those wireframes, right? So maybe you didn't complete all the sections as clearly, but you got some information from having people who have not designed the app click on it, what they saw, what they understood, what they didn't understand. So now you're ready to go back and tighten up the UX and how the app is all going to work. In addition, right, you should, once you've tightened those wireframes, maybe completed them, revisit your flow diagram and keep that up to date, right? If you haven't made it yet, create it, and be sure to indicate, right, what people clicked on, how to work through, how the screens all kind of fit together. Now our next task is the UI design, and this is round one. So this is your initial design, right? You have your wireframes, you did the UX, you should know what content is going to go on your. Now we need to make the look and feel, right? What do the screens really look like? And the goal here is that we don't want to just color in the wireframes, right? Don't confuse the wireframes for the design. The design should look, really media savvy, real photos, colors, gradients, illustrations, icons. They should look as slick and cool as you can make them, right? You do not have to follow the wireframes verbatim. Okay, so be open to inspiration as you're looking around on how to do that. To be clear, each member of the team will do a complete set of a look and feel, right? So if your team has 4 members in it, there should be 4 distinctive look and feels for us to review. Don't compare notes while you're doing the design, right? Don't end up doing 4 versions of the same design. Everybody should just sort of come at it from their own perspective. Once we do the review next week, then it'll be time to organize them, get them into one final version that you'll use for your final project. Choose screens that have enough elements that we can imagine how the rest of the app would look using the design language, right? So for examples, maybe the main and home screen, some major section, another important screen, and maybe a detail page. So I'll add that in. Okay, and then the design should, again, like as I said, don't look like it's colored in. It should really look different. And you're going to present all 4 versions to the class, and each team member will present their own version, explain what they were after. Okay, so that's it for what work we'll be doing. So, designing the UI, right? It's time to answer the question how to translate the wireframes into an exceptional user interface. So, mobile design practices continue to evolve, right? As designers, we have to continually look and try out as many interfaces as we can. But it's hard to keep up, right? So, often just, Google great mobile UI design examples. I'm not going to write. When you find stuff that you like, right? Use a clipping service like Evernote or make a Pinterest board, somewhere to keep track of the inspiration, right? I have my own Pinterest board for interactive design where I put interfaces that I find that I really like. And I've got some places to look, so we'll talk about those in a minute. But, let's get into more specific how-to of designing, right? What we're really after in the UI. So these resources all, I think, really do a really nice job of explaining in detail, item by item, things you should be concerned with, and how to sort of take your skills to the next level. So let's take a look at this first one. Let's just get ourselves to the top here, right? So this is sponsored by Adobe, right? So keep that in mind. But this article goes into really great depth, item by item, right? So I'm not going to go through all of them. We'll just go through a few. Minimize cognitive load or decluttering. right? And they do a nice job of showing examples, right? We don't want toolbars like this, right, that try to have all the icons kind of squeezed in. We're much more interested simplifying, right, getting down to the real key controls that are necessary, and figuring out how to integrate other features more appropriately up into the content where they're probably more relevant. Okay. Here's a nice example of what's called progressive disclosure. Right. So when we first start the list, things are closed up. Once you get active, then you open them up and show all of the detail. Right. And then the second one, when they click the start button, they access even more, right? Hit the request, and then there's the map and, whatever. I'm not sure what this app does, but something about locations, right? So keep in mind, right, illustration or animation, how you can take maybe your spaced out wireframes and really kind of tighten them up in the UI, right? Just because you've initially put things in multiple screens, it's not unusual to be able to condense that through more interactive UI techniques, still go through the features in the same order, but make the actual experience a little more intuitive and interactive. All right, offloading tasks is just, making things not look over complicated or too hard to get through, right? Step through 1, 2, 3, filling out forms, that kind of thing. Right. Again, these are other types of chunking, working with a calendar, sort of more interactive way of buying tickets and for movie times. And again, I think these are sort of experimental UI projects. But again, keeping an eye on this kind of stuff, sort of seeing how this might apply to your project, all very useful. Using familiar screens, right? If there are features that are common to lots of apps and your app includes it, use the same feature. We don't have to go into a lot of making, new stuff all the time. Save those new items for features in your app that are really unique. Okay. All right. Again, lots more, right? We're still way up here. It's like way down. So there's a lot of information in this post. 15 basic screen types. And this is all about taking advantage of what users already know from other apps that they've worked with. The more you can leverage their existing understanding about your app, the easier it will be for them to get used to using your app and use it effectively. So this one goes through some common screen types. The splash screen, right? When the app opens up, what's the most important stuff you want them to do? Get it on the home page. Let them get rolling right away. Onboarding, we'll talk about this in Project 3. Right, menu screens, the home screen. Again, go through these at your pleasure. UI do's and don'ts. So this one I find really effective for detailing, right? It's from Apple, and they do a really nice job of sort of a side-by-side, right? Do it like this, not like this. Right? So see the strong photo with the full bleed, the headline type is a good hierarchy, the support type is lighter, but it's big enough, right? If you want to read it, it's easy enough to read. But the visual hierarchy is photo title, right? Step 1. Here is the title and the photo and the dark text, and it's cut off, and the rest of it's just a mess, right? It feels not really well put together. It feels hard. Be aware, because the screens are so small, details and subtlety really matter. Right, touch controls. Good heavens, who's going to try? How are we going to click on those little teensy numbers to set a calendar event? Right. Take advantage of the existing UI that's already built into the standards, so that when you hit the date, right, you get this sort of spin and scroll. This is again on Apple devices. Hit targets. Right, I've mentioned how small those items were. Should be 44 pixels square is the standard, right? So you draw a little circle around it, right? That's enough space, right? 44 for the next one, right? When they're too tight, it's really tricky to sort of tap the right app, spend a lot of time, trying to like it, but end up forwarding it, that kind of mess. So text size, right? If your screen looks like this, no good, right? Too small, too tight. You can't really read that, right? And use this page to sort of compare what your designs really look like to what are recommended, right? A minimum of 11 points. Contrast, right? You can go through the rest. Finally, the fourth one is just a write-up from Google about a good mobile site. So I think there's a lot of good information. Very similar, yes and no. Again, this stuff evolves. We'll talk about that a little later. Okay. So now we're on to some just design inspirations. I've just linked to a few places to get you started, right? You can find as many of these as you can possibly want. All right. All right, so, you can see the amount of animation and, how things grow and slide and do all their stuff. Again, you may or may not be able to do all of this in your prototype, right? If maybe somebody has motion design skills and wants to do one example just like this, is just showing a few screens and how they might work, you could do that. IxD and Figma both have animation capabilities in them, but again, trying to do the whole app this way might be more than you can chew, but consider, as you've done the click-through, you maybe pick a couple of key spots and animate them, right? And you can link to that in your presentation as to, here's the whole app prototype, but here's an example in this other section, or a link that would animate how we would imagine it would work. This thing, UX Planet and Moozly, they show lots of stuff. Again, go through these at your leisure. Next one, Mock Plus, again, more app inspiration did some last year. And it's really just about starting to see, right, this full bleed photo that pushes out the top and the bottom, right, blend into the black, but still have insets, how to do our load screen, right, handling of the typography. Using illustrations, right? If you can find a set of illustrations that make sense for your app that would give you a good feel, go ahead and do that, right? Typography is all handled very nicely. The cards, the gradients, the little curves. Okay. More interactions. So Moozly, I mentioned earlier, they do a weekly interactions for web and mobile together. So they show, this is just a website, showing all kinds of stuff. All right. Some UI interactions, things that play in, moving the cards, moves within cards. All right, how the screens can slide up and over, slide down, flip. Okay. Following the trends, right? These are all helpful, right? What the standards were in 2018, but how Facebook is sort of evolving and redesigning. Again, apps that kind of look this way, right? Starting today will start to feel old-fashioned. So always be aware of what trends are happening, what the big boys are all, where they're moving. Again, apps continually get updated, revised as more and more users try them out, and we sort of track and see what's more effective, what's more interesting. Okay. And then I've linked to just some more principles, right, for reading, just to understand at a deeper level. Top tile, right, this is their mobile design section. Right. UX design principles, constraints, best practices, working with developers. Right, and design trends. Again, none of these are required reading, but I put them here just, again, the deeper your knowledge is, the better prepared you are. And lastly, these were also introduced during the UX phase. I'm not sure how many people went over them or saw them, but I just wanted to remind you, right? So iOS, right, the design guidelines, right, for doing mobile, their design section, right, with their guidelines, accessible, apps for the world, doing the marketing. And then the resources, and these, you can download files, right, for direct use. I'll show them when we're done, just as to sort of see what's in these kind of things. I think I pulled down the IxD 11 kit. I'm not positive. And then the same thing for material design if you're doing an Android app. All right, this is the material design for Google, the design section. Take a look. All right, so it goes over all the specifications for all of their design treatments. And likewise, they have a resources section where you can download all the assets. All right. All right, so that is the UI. So I will see you in the next video.